You know that my transition into the truth was not just great and all daisies and roses. It was definitely a rocky transition. I feel like if you're especially a girl child and you don't have a father growing up, it creates distrust with males. As a woman, even though you know that there is nothing you can really do about the situation and it is what it is and you don't blame that man, mentally that does something to you. Sometimes that's kind of where you have to start, is by not necessarily submitting to your husband, but submitting to the Most High. And by submitting to the Most High, you will eventually start to submit to your husband the way you should. Another way I like to look at it is like a sports analogy. So my husband is the head coach of the team, right? We run a football team. We might as well with 6 children. No, mind your business. I don't be checking for you and your heathen ass. Don't be checking for me and my Hebrew ass.
Got a virtuous chick. Yes, she bad. Treated like a queen.
Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I have a sit down video for you where I'm going to be talking about a topic that one of our sisters wanted me to discuss on this channel. So I'm glad to do that. So Tiara, God's gift, this video is for you. And I just wanted to go ahead and read the question. I'm also going to pop it on the screen right here. But she basically asked, I'm just looking down at my phone because I have my notes here, but if I could talk about my role as the lady of the house and how I deal with my husband as an Israelite wife and mother. So I definitely wanted to discuss this topic. I thought this was a great question because a lot of times when you're, at least this is my experience, maybe it's not accurate, but just from what I see, a lot of times we'll see like Israelite content and it will be very scriptural based, which of course you want to back anything that you're saying to someone up with scripture. But sometimes I don't see women necessarily talking about how they came into the truth and, you know, what their experience was and things like that. And we all are not the same. And the ones that I have seen is more like, I don't want to say cookie cutter because I feel like that's like a not nice way to say it, but just basically they're in the truth, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, life is great, they're studying and whatnot, and that's not always the case. At least it wasn't the case for me. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background so you guys can understand kind of my story and how I got to where I am today in the truth. So if you watch my Hebrew Israelite Q&A video, you know that my transition into the truth was not just great and all daisies and roses. It was definitely a rocky transition. So in 2015, I was introduced to the truth by my husband. He had been doing some research just on like some other things, and I don't really remember what the other things were, but that kind of led him to his first video about being a Hebrew Israelite, and then that just kind of led him you know, the YouTube rabbit hole. You click on one video and then another video comes up pertaining to that issue, and he was just like, what is going on? And he just had this like reaction, like everything that he had been taught his entire life was a lie, as far as like the Bible and scripture and how you are supposed to behave as a Christian and things like that. So my husband was raised in a religious household. Although we weren't really religious in our household, we did believe in God, but he was definitely raised in a house where they believed in God. They took Bible scripture and things like that seriously, whereas I was not. Like, we went to church on like holidays, and every now and again my grandmother would find like a new church, and then I would go for like 1 or 2 times, 1 or 2 weekends, and then I wouldn't go. It wasn't something like we went to church every Sunday in my house. So religion wasn't like, of course I believed in God, but religion just wasn't a like something that was pushed in my household. So when my husband came to me in 2015, his reaction was very different from mine. He felt betrayed, right? I guess, yeah, he felt betrayed, I would say. It hurt him, and it pissed him off at the same time. So, but my reaction was very different because I had not been raised in a very religious household. So I immediately was like, sorry about that, my kids. I was very open to it. I was like, what do you mean? Of course Black people are the chosen people. Of course we're amazing. And that's just off of how I initially felt about myself as a Black person. I always thought Black people were special. I always thought Black people were different and we were just a special people. That's always something that I thought. So when my husband came to me about being the chosen people, I immediately gravitated to that. But what I did have an issue with was struggling with keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, and especially obeying my husband. I'll be honest with you, when I first heard street teaching, I was like, what is this hateful speech? What are they talking about? Why are they so loud? Why are they yelling at people? Why are they yelling at their own people? Like, I just was not with it. And my husband I think whenever you go through a change like that in your household where the family dynamic changes very much, where you're no longer equal in a sense, and your husband is not equal to you, he is a head of the household and you are kind of the second in command. When you're coming out of the world and in Babylon and trying to change that, it is very difficult because the world teaches you your entire life that as a woman you're supposed to be one way, and then when you have to change that, though, that is very hard. At the same time, I was struggling with my mental illness very badly. I was not in a good place. I just was not okay at that time, so that definitely factored into it, and how I responded to it. So I definitely struggled with being able to understand my place as a woman, and I struggled for a very long time until I fully accepted the will of the Most High. And then once I did that, it just became easier and easier and easier, and a lot of my bad ways kind of fell off, not all at once, but it fell off, like, you know, as time goes on. So I was raised by my mom and also my grandmother. Most of our life we lived with my grandmother, and of course she helped raise me. And then my father kind of dipped in and out of my life, more out than in. So I didn't have a real solid male figure in my life. I feel like if you're especially a girl child and you don't have a father growing up, it creates distrust with males, so that carries itself into adulthood. You don't trust your husband, you don't trust your man because you didn't have that father figure that was there to protect you. So, you know, you have that trust that that male figure in your life that moves on to be your husband later in life is going to protect you. So I think that is the main reason why we don't necessarily trust our men, because we don't feel like they're going to protect us. And who wants to be with someone who can't protect them, right? Like my kids, like for instance, if you have kids and your husband is the head of the household, and he's raised your kids, like you guys have like a family dynamic, you notice that when your husband comes home, your kids, they straighten up. When daddy raises his voice, the kids, their butt cheeks get tight and they like, ooh, daddy is about to handle some business. But because I didn't have that kind of upbringing with my dad, I didn't have that respect for my husband. It just wasn't there. So I had to learn to respect hierarchy and the role that I had, because that's how I had to think of it, that is how the Most High made it, right? It's not about me. It's not about how I feel. It's about what the Most High wanted. And the Most High made woman from man, right? I'm supposed to be his companion, his second in command. So it's not about how I feel about the situation. It's about what it is. And my mom and grandmother they weren't like, very feminist and, you know, very independent type, like women, like you need to be independent, that type of thing. I was always taught how to serve a man, how to treat a man, mostly from seeing my mom with my stepfather, how she treated him, how she fed him first, how she made his plate, how she made sure his clothes were washed, how she made sure the house was clean, and that type of thing. So I did learn how to take care of a man, but I don't think I learned how to respect a man, because my mom was off the chain when it came to my mom was off the chain when it came to my stepfather, and my grandmother was just off the chain in general. Just like they had mouth on them and they did all of this and all of that. And I'm a Benjamite. I come from a very Jamaican household, and my father's from Grenada. So we are Caribbean women, and if you know anything about Caribbean women, Israelite women in general, we got that fire, okay? So I grew up seeing my mom and my grandmother give that fire if need be. So even though I was shown how to take care of a man, I could take care of my husband when we got married, and even before, when we were together, living together, having kids, and stuff like that. I knew how to take care of my husband, but I didn't know how to respect my husband because of my upbringing. I want to talk about the why Israelite women do not respect their men. And it goes back from generation to generation, hundreds of years ago. I think that the reason why we don't respect our men started very early in times of slavery, right? So we would see our men, our big, black, strong, muscular men, get beat and get whipped, right? And that does something to you mentally. As a woman, even though you know that there is nothing you can really do about the situation and it is what it is, and you don't blame that man, mentally that does something to you. Because as a woman, your instinct is, you feel it here to be protected. And if you have a man who can't even protect himself, and he can't protect you because you're getting raped by master, or whatever the case may be, it just does something to you mentally. And that carries on from generation to generation throughout our ancestors up until today, right? And it just gets worse and worse and worse throughout the generations. So at some point we stopped being married. We got this independent spirit. We don't need a man. We don't need to be with men. We don't need to have families. My baby daddy, I don't need to be with him, whatever. We got this attitude about us now. Now, the most recent thing that has contributed to us not wanting to have families anymore, not wanting to obey our men, not wanting our men to be head of household, not respecting them, is the feminism movement. So if you know anything about the feminism movement, y'all you know that basically it was a movement that white women came up with so they can be liberated from their men. But black women, we love to tout the feminism thing, but feminism wasn't for us, okay? White women used us to further their agenda. It's not for us. They weren't checking for us. They didn't want us to be a part of it, but they used us to get where they are now. That feminism movement was the worst thing that could have ever happened to black women, because it stopped the black household and it stopped grandma and grandpa, mommy and daddy from being together, okay? So y'all black women that's out there talking about I'm a feminist, I'm independent, I'm this, that, and the third. You're a fool, okay? And part of that, we're all fools in one way, shape, of another, but you're a fool for that, because white women had no intention of having you be liberated from anything. They just used you to further their agenda, okay? And now we're out there without fathers for our children. Our men are in jail, our men are being killed on the street, and we have no one to raise our children and raise our sons to be men and heads of household. So, I mean, listen, I could go on and on about this, but I'm not. I'm gonna move on. So let's talk about how I think we can fix the issue. So my husband said something to me the other day that I just thought was so profound, because it's true. It's absolutely true. So I went through a period in my life where I had to, like, the Most High had to break me down to build me back up, right? So I went through that period in my life. It was the worst thing I had ever went through, other than the death of my mom. And it was like, even thinking about it just makes me like exhausted. But the Most High had to break me down to build me back up. And what my husband said to me is, sometimes, like, I feel like you're not submitting to me, but you're submitting to the will of the Most High. And that is so freaking true. Listen, men are not perfect. Men do and say things sometimes that are just not cool, right? And as a woman, I used to just be like clapping back, and I had to learn to not do that, right? And I had to learn to do that by submitting to the will of the Most High, and not necessarily submitting to my husband sometimes. And I know that sounds bad. Thinking about being the chosen people, right? And being in a land that I can't be 100% free in, a land where it's like my sons are at risk, my daughter's at risk, especially my sons for being killed for no reason. Thinking about being the chosen, and also thinking about being the one of the elect, my family being elect, pushes me forward when I have times where I'm not feeling great about myself, or not wanting to do the things that I should be doing as a wife and mother. So sometimes that's kind of where you have to start, is by not necessarily submitting to your husband, but submitting to the Most High. And by submitting to the Most High, you will eventually start to submit to your husband the way you should, right? Because you'll realize that it's not about you, it's not about what you want, it's about order. And the Most High commands order. And if he commands order, and you know that, and you want to make the Most High happy, you will follow his law, statutes, and commandments, and you will be a woman that will treat your husband well, right? Not disrespect him, not make him feel like he's at war in his own home. You will want to take care of your children. You will want to do the best that you can. Now, will that happen 100% of the time? No. You're going to have times where you're a better mom than others. You're going to have times where you make a mistake and maybe blow up. It's about how you learn from those mistakes, right? So I just had to blow up with my husband the other day. Totally my fault, because I was in my feelings about something, and I had to, again, submit to the will of the Most High, submit to my husband and say, look, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Can you please forgive me? I'm going to try to do better. And that's really the goal, because no one's perfect, right? So you have to just know that you're going to have bad times, but you want to learn from those mistakes. But you also want to make sure that most of the time you're learning from those mistakes, so you can make sure that most of the time you're making the right decisions. So another way I like to look at it is, like a sports analogy. So my husband is the head coach of the team, right? We run a football team. We might as well with 6 children. But my husband is the head coach of that team, right? I am his assistant coach. I am second in command when it comes to this family. And the head coach is required to make sure certain things happen on the team. But as the assistant coach, I am required to make sure that all the players on the team have the shine that they need to have, right? So he needs to have everything as the head coach to make sure that he is shining in the light of the Most High, because he is the head of my household. My children need to shine in a certain way because they need to make sure that my job is to prepare them for life, right? And that's the game. The game is life. The game is life and being able to follow the law, statutes, and commandments so we can get into the kingdom one day. And my job is to make sure they have all the tools and everything that they need to do that, right? And my husband is the head coach, so he gives the speeches. He makes sure there's order. But it's my job to make sure that they know the order. My kids know the order, and that my husband has everything he needs to make sure that the order is in place. And he's the one that gives the orders, but I prepare everybody for the orders. So a lot of times as the second in command, you're making sure that everybody shines. And technically, sometimes it's a lot more work to be the second in command than it is the first in command. But that's the order of things, right? So I like to think of myself as the assistant coach, and when I need to jump in and make sure everything is taken care of, that's my job. And that's just how I look at it. It's a team effort, right? And sometimes as the second in command, my team requires me to do more. And that's fine. That's good, right? Because there's a saying, I think there's a worldly saying that says basically behind every great man is an even greater woman. That is true in Israel as well. Behind every great king is an even better queen, because she knows how to make her king shine and step behind him, and she's prepared him for everything that he needs to do and be, and his family and everything around him, so he can be the best that he can be. And that's kind of how I have to look at it, or I look at it when I am taking care of my household. Another way I like to look at being the woman of my house, and as far as submitting to my husband, is I like to think of the world when my husband is out there working, running errands, doing whatever he needs to do. When he leaves this house, that's a war zone, right? As soon as he opens the door, it's a war zone. He may be faced with racism. He may be faced with danger. He may be come in contact with a dangerous police officer, a dangerous person, another Israelite person who's not in the truth that may try to harm him, a white person that may try to harm him, an Asian person, someone from the other nations that may try to harm him. There is so many dangers out there when my husband leaves this house, right? That is the war zone out there. And when my husband comes back home, this is his safe zone, right? If this is his safe zone, you don't want to make your husband feel like he's at war in his house, right? There should be separation. When he leaves, there's war. When he comes home, he's safe, right? And as a woman, you don't want to make him feel like inside of his house is the same way it is when he's outside of his home, right? That's not to say that as women that we don't experience certain things and that we don't need to be taken care of emotionally and things like that. But what I am saying is we are a special breed. We can be extremely difficult in certain situations, extremely hormonal. You know how we are as women. So my best advice to you is when your husband leaves and he comes back, take care of your husband when he's in home. Make him feel wanted, make him feel needed, make sure that he had a hot meal, make sure that your kids are in order, make sure that everything he needs is there for him in his household, including the comfort of you, right? So if as a woman you need something, don't get an attitude. Don't assume that he knows, because men are simple creatures. They just want to be fed. They want to be left alone sometimes, get a little break when they come home. Like, don't have your kids or you bothering your husband as soon as he walks through the door. Give him about 45 minutes to an hour, get something in his stomach, you know, relax for a little bit before you put the kids on him and, you know, is talking shit to him about what he needs to do, what you need him to do, what didn't done, what happened today with you and the kids and stuff like that. Give your man a little bit of a break. And if you need something, say something, right? You know that saying, if you see something, say something. That was like the saying after 9/11. If you see something, say something. If you need something as a woman, say something. Men are simple creatures. They don't need much, and they take things at face value. So if you say, I'm okay, they're going to think that you're okay. So if you're not okay, you need to create an environment where you're able to talk to your husband without an attitude and say, listen, this is how I feel. This is how you make me feel. I don't like it. We need to have a discussion about it, whatever the case may be. Now, that doesn't mean that in any way, shape, or form I'm saying that your husband should be disrespectful to you. Your husband should treat you the same way there's a scripture in the Bible, I'll put it right here because I don't know it verbatim, but he should treat you as how he treats himself. So he should love you the way he loves himself. So your husband should not be mean to you. He should not be abusive to you. He should not call you names. He should not do things like that to you. And he should provide an environment for you where you're able to talk to him about your feelings. It's not only on the woman's side, it's very much on the man's side as well, for him to take care of you. Part of his job as your protector is to protect your emotions and your feelings as well. So y'all need to create an environment, however you do that, with counseling if you can't just talk it out. But you need to be able to just speak to your husband in a calm way and say, hey, I want to talk to you. This happened. I didn't like it. Or you said this and it made me feel that way. And sometimes as women, we have to just acknowledge that sometimes what actually happened is not in line with how we feel about what happened, right? How many times have you felt disrespected, but your husband didn't actually disrespect you? He might have just said something you didn't like. Hey, why is the kitchen counters, this is just an example, I don't know. Why do the kitchen counters have food all over them? And you felt like he was saying you don't clean up, but he actually didn't say that. He just asked why there's food all over the counter, which is a legitimate question. So just be mindful of that as well. But your man is definitely responsible for taking care of you, protecting your emotions, and protecting your feelings. So create an environment where you guys can talk about how you feel. And sometimes that does not happen just in the home that way. Sometimes you do need to seek counseling, and there's no shame in that. You know, just make sure, I would just make sure that your counselor is very aware of what that you're in the truth, and there are things that are non-starters for her to or him to kind of be like, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. But yeah, you want to create an environment that your husband feels comfortable in and that you feel comfortable in. Now, I just want to briefly touch on taking care of your kids and being that example for them, because I'll be honest with you, I don't always think that I was a great mom, right? There are times, and I think this goes for anyone, but because I have a mental illness, there were times where I feel like I didn't give my kids all the love that they needed. I felt like I wasn't doing the best that I could. I struggled a lot, and there are things that I feel like I could have been doing better that I didn't do, and it bothers me till this day. But I know that I was just doing the best that I can at the moment, and I want to just tell you guys that, like, sometimes you're going to feel like you're not being the best mom, or you're not doing the best that you can. You're not taking care of your children the way you should, or whatever the case may be. But I also want to tell you that, listen, we all go through things happen, But the best thing that you can do is pray, dust yourself off, pick yourself up, and try again. And as long as you're doing that and trying to learn and be the best that you can for your children, that's all you can really ask for, right? We are to teach our children, especially our girls, we are to raise them up to be respectful, to, be great Israelite women, to understand what it is to be a mother and a wife. And that doesn't mean that we don't teach them how to go out and make money in the world and have a career. That's not what it is. It's not like we're teaching our girls just to go and be a mom and wife and do nothing else with their lives. But we do need to teach them that. That is a skill that they need to know. They need to know how to cook. They need to know how to clean. They need to know how to take care of themselves. Make sure that their hygiene is good, that type of thing. And for our men, even though our husbands are the head of our household and they need to lead the boys to do what they're supposed to do, as women, we need to teach them. That's our role. We're emotional. We understand emotions and how to be respectful of other people's emotions. And it's our job to teach our sons how to be that way as well. How to respect women, how to take care of themselves, how to cook, how to clean. Just because men don't typically do that doesn't mean that they don't need to have those skills as well. But we also need to teach them, because one day they're going to have a wife. So you want to teach them how to be emotionally intelligent. And that is what you should teach your children, to be emotionally intelligent, because I believe being emotionally intelligent saves you so much from being in your feelings about certain things in the world, right? You're able to say, listen, this is not an emotional situation. This is what needs to be done. This is how it needs to be done. My husband is not trying to tear me down and be a bad person to me. He's telling me what he needs to tell me because he loves me. He wants to take care of me. And let's take the emotion out of it. So it's just my favorite saying is that the key to life is balance. So it's just about teaching your kids balance of what they need to be at what time they need to be. Listen, because of my mental illness, I often have to make schedules and to-do lists and a whole bunch of things for things you wouldn't even think that someone would need to make a list for. But it's whatever works for you to take care of your family, your husband, your children. Putting positive affirmations on the wall, on your mirror in the morning, saying, I am blessed, I am loved, my husband loves me, we have a strong bond, I love you, husband. Whatever the case may be, put sticky notes, whatever you need to do to get where you need to be. Make a list. At 6 o'clock, I need to give the baby a bath. Whatever the case may be, whatever works for you, and have no shame in that, right? As a mom, you have instinct, right, on how to take care of your kids, but this world will create a situation where your mind is going a mile a minute, not even with a mental health condition. It's just so much going on, so much that we're required to do to survive in this world. You can forget the little things. So whatever works for you to take care of your children, get you a chore chart, get you a menu, delegate tasks, make sure this is done or that is done. Do what works for you, and whatever makes your household run the way it's supposed to, go ahead and do that, and have no shame in your game, because at the end of the day, you are making sure that your household is taken care of, while someone else is laughing at you because you got a bunch of lists, but they may be forgetting to do what they're supposed to be doing. Listen, don't be having nobody checking for your household. And listen, don't be checking for me in my house. Don't be checking for me and how I run my house. Don't be checking for me and how I'm doing this, especially if you're not in the truth, and especially if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. Don't be checking for me in my relationship. No. A man and a woman's, a wife and a husband's relationship is sacred. And someone who's not married, not in the truth, don't be checking for my shit. Period. point blank. If you're not in the truth and you're not about this community and Hebrew nation building, don't be checking for how I raise my kids, all right? Unless I'm abusing them or something like that. Don't be doing it, because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Don't have people come into your circle and try to tell you what they need to tell you, think they need to tell you because they want to have something to say. No, mind your business. I don't be checking for you and your heathen ass. Don't be checking for me and my Hebrew ass, okay? I also mentioned this in my Hebrew Israelite Q&A at the very end of the video, but I also wanted to mention this. Sometimes you're going to have like a beef with your husband. You guys are going to argue. You guys maybe don't agree on something. And I would just recommend to just not get too emotional in that situation. Don't scream, don't yell, don't fight. Sometimes the best way to let a man know that he is not doing right in this situation is to be silent and let him marinate. Because a lot of times if you have a good man, a man who's in the truth, a man who loves you and protects you and cares about your spirit and how you feel emotionally and wants to protect that, he will go and simmer a little bit. And though what he did, he'll simmer in that and he'll come back and apologize. That's usually what happens if you have a good man. So sometimes silence is the best thing that you can do for your relationship. Shit, Hebrew women, we let people know how we feel with our face without even saying anything. So sometimes just that works better than anything else. So I hope this video was helpful. I feel like it was long. I talked a lot, but I hope this video was helpful. If I didn't cover anything that you wanted me to specifically talk about, let me know and I will go ahead and make another video covering any topics that you have. If you guys want me to do a Q&A, go ahead and drop your questions down below and I'll go make another video kind of going through specific questions and answering them just with my experience and what I think the best thing to do for them is. But I thank you guys so much for tuning in. I so appreciate you guys. I love making these videos for you guys. I love this community. I love my tribe. So I just wanted to say you guys have an amazing day. All praises to the Most High and shalom.
Virtuous chick, yeah she bad. Treated like a queen, touch a class. Got a virtuous chick, yeah she bad. Need her on my team, got my bag.